Welcome to the newest episode of All Things LOCS, where we discuss everything related to leadership, operations, culture, and strategies. Now, if you're working in healthcare and you own a private practice, it's not the easiest times that we're going through right now, but there are many things you can do that are within your control to really not just safeguard your practice, but really build something that is sustainable and as the owner gives you a lot of freedom. But secret is that you have to know what you have to put in place to make that happen. And that's why I'm really happy to have our guest on today. We have Adam Robin, who's physical therapist, doctor of physical therapy, and the CEO of 4 companies, which includes a brand new credentialing company. He's all about systems, leadership, and he's going to give you a huge lesson on just how to overall grow your company and have a life doing it too. Adam, really happy to have you, man.
Dan, thanks for being here, man. You got the setup, bro. You got the studio, the mic, the headphones. I mean, I gotta step my game
No,
up.
it's just, yeah, you got to make yourself look good in some way. So, no, I mean, studio's
Yeah.
amazing, very fortunate, and a lot of gratitude. These guys can help us out. But, hey, man, look, it's all about the message, which is why I'm really glad you're here. You're out there putting out a lot of good stuff to a lot of healthcare practitioners, and it's the kind of messaging that we need to hear that we typically don't. And I think really what I want to, start this off first is you got so much good stuff going on that I really want to dive into your new business, your leadership journey. Really where I might want to maybe start this is a little background on yourself in terms of going from the clinician to the owner. And as you're building up this vision that you have, what, so to speak, is the purpose behind what you're doing with regards to helping out other practitioners as well?
Totally. Man, what a great question. I should probably have an elevator pitch because I've probably been asked this so many times, but I like to kind of revisit the journey. So here's the summary. I'll give you the short answer. I was raised by a father, a blue collar business owner. He's a plumber. He owns a small plumbing company in New Orleans, and he was probably the hardest working man in America. And so, when you grow up, when you're raised by a guy like that, you just work. You just work.
Yeah.
You just shut up and work, right? And so I kind of always had this entrepreneurial spirit and this work ethic that was a little bit more than most people. And I figured I'm just going to graduate PT school and open my business with that strategy, just work as hard as I possibly can. And it did work for a little while until it didn't, until the business became bigger than my work ethic could keep up. Even though I was probably the hardest working person that I knew, it wasn't enough. I had to learn how to build something outside of myself. And that was the first time in my life that I really realized I wasn't a machine, that I did have flaws, and a lot of the gaps in my skills, my knowledge, my leadership, my personality started to be exposed whenever the business started to squeeze me like that. And I realized that it wasn't enough. I started to have a lot of self-doubt, a lot of anxiety, and kind of like this crisis, this identity crisis, oh my God, I thought this was going to work and now it's not working out, right?
Yeah.
So then that's when I got into coaching. I hired a coach named Nathan Shields, who was my first business coach, and he was that softer mentor that wasn't my father, just telling me to get up and work every day. He was like that softer mentor with a little more experience, a little more wise, who kind of taught me how to be more introspective and step out of the business a little more and be more strategic in the way that I grow, specifically growing through leverage and not through so much willpower and grit. And that's when my life changed, man. I learned that, and then I hired another coach, and I hired another coach, and I've experienced so much personal development along the way. And so business started becoming more of a spiritual game for me. And it's the more that I work on myself, the more that I can control my own psychology, the more my vision expands, the more people that I bring into my team, and the more I can get out of the way, And so that's kind of been how it works for me.
Yeah, that you said a lot there, which is, you're putting in the effort. I think we obviously learn from a lot from our parents, and my dad's the same way. The guy had his own business with my mom, but throwing down 80-hour work weeks, and
Yeah.
that's all. That's all they know. So you use that as the roadmap, right? And it's this is the way to do it until you start figuring out this is I'm not gonna be able to sustain this for a long time.
Mm.
And you want to try to figure out how to do things a little bit smarter. when you're going down that personal development stage, just run me, maybe tell the audience, like, what does that actually allow you to do? Because there's definitely a lot of people who are in ownership and leadership positions, but then they actually don't really put a lot of work into improving themselves. So what did that look like specifically for you? And it made you a little more vulnerable, definitely control your emotions, but what is the real impact if you said to an owner, hey, this is why you really need to work on that personal development side?
Yeah, I mean, when you when you do hard things like growing a business, everybody can be composed and clear and happy when they're sitting on a beach drinking margaritas. You know what I mean? It's not until the pressure is applied, whenever all of the weaknesses and vulnerabilities in your character start to become exposed, right? And your insecurities. And that's exactly what the business does. It squeezes us, and then we start to self-sabotage. We become our own worst enemy, right? Like we get in our own way and we start becoming irrational. And there's a lot of fear and emotions that drive decisions instead of clarity and composure. And if you can't, I have found, like, if you can't learn to become the master of that, then it becomes the master of you. And you're no longer driving the bus, right? You're just kind of like, you're just holding on to the tail end of it. So I have found so much growth, and not just business, but my personal life as well when I started to develop a self-development practice of reading regularly, some type of spiritual work, meditation, getting in touch with uh, really strong mentors and peers that I surround myself with. And when I dedicate myself, when I learn to love myself, the business learns to love me, right?
Yeah.
And that's been my experience.
So what do you mean by love yourself, so to speak? If somebody's like, all right, I've maybe heard that phrase, but what does that actually look like on a daily basis?
Yeah, you got to prioritize yourself, right? So like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Covey quadrant, Stephen Covey's Covey quadrant,
Yeah.
right? There's the urgent and important matrix.
Yep.
You can read Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I think that's where it's
Yeah.
that's where it's at.
Great book.
But I think it's in the lower right quadrant. I can't remember what quadrant it is, but it's the non-urgent but important bucket. So it's the bucket of rest and rejuvenation and thinking and um, things that you invest in. You invest into yourself that don't have immediate impact, right? And those are often the things that get ignored, right? Usually the things that grab our attention are the urgent fires that we're trying to put out every day, the phones and the employee complaints and the Medicare cuts and all the things. And so we learn to love and become addicted to putting out those urgent, emotionally driven fires so much and so long that we forget about the person that we are. So we just like beat ourselves down with putting out these fires all day that we forget about ourselves. And so it's this active decision that I'm going to let that fire burn, and I'm going to choose myself today, whether that's, getting 7 hours of sleep, for God's sake.
Get
You know
out
what
of
I
here.
mean? Like
Yeah.
spending some time with your family and learning to run your business from a full cup as opposed to an empty one. And when you can get on top of that, when your cup is full, you win that game. It's like most of the time we figure out what to do, right? We work through problems a little bit better. We're a little less reactionary. People like us a little more, and our businesses usually win, and we make more money too.
Yeah. I like you just said that people like us more. It's so true though, right? It's nobody wants to work with the person who's exhausted and that's turning them into maybe the angry or
Yeah,
belligerent person versus you're really cool 80% of the time. And then there's the other 20% where you're over the top, angry or frustrated or whatever. I don't even want to be around you. And that really does have a trickle down effect, because we do, to your point, is the easy thing to do is actually work harder
the
versus,
easiest thing to
yeah,
do.
right? Like you could definitely, and it's not a quality everybody has, it's called what it is. But as a business owner, that should be one of the top things that you shouldn't be touting yourself as I'm a hard worker. Well, if you own a business, you definitely should be a hard worker. But what can you do differently? Like you said, it's like, all right, that's only going to get you so far. At what point will you try a different pathway that maybe isn't as comfortable, but is what's necessary, and pull yourself out of the daily grind of your own business to see, all right, what do I need to actually do differently? And I find out that's what a lot of people fall into the habit of. Let's just keep doing the same thing over and over. and then we're magically going to expect a different kind of outcome. But we were talking a little bit before the show about, and this is really a great segue of being prepared and working in the business, or on the business, I should say, to be prepared for those situations that you can't always predict. And we were talking a little bit about what's going on in the current climate with the government shutdown as it relates to some Medicare holding some claims and potential for, if people's premiums go up, are they going to be able to afford even coming in? But kind of curious to know, when you look at a situation like that, and if I'm a business owner coming to you saying, Adam, if I'm not getting paid from, maybe Medicare, and it's half of my clients, half of my patients are the Medicare age, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What would you tell that person?
Well, I would try to be sympathetic and empathetic, because I know that's a very hard situation to be in. First and foremost, if you're going through that, I'm sorry. We're all going through it. And it's not an easy situation. So
Yeah.
let's just all acknowledge that. We have to be real. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened, right? It's going to happen again. Every year, something happens to our cash flow. It's either going to be COVID, or, I think it was last year, we had the big VA issue where the VA, they weren't paying out for VA benefits.
Yeah.
Now it's the government shutdown. So it's like, we have to, at some point, we have to understand that it's our responsibility to be prepared for these things. Like, we have to take ownership of that. So that's why every business book you read tells you must have 6 months of working capital saved, right? So like, if you have a business, now I understand if you're just starting out, I get it. But even if you're just starting out, your goal isn't to earn money. Your goal is to get to that savings, that safety net. Like, that's the goal. So like, if you've got, I don't know, like $50,000 in your account, that's not your money. That's the business's money. The business keeps that, right? So you have to prioritize getting your cash reserves to a place that's able to withstand these ebbs and flows. And that's how you can withstand these cash flow crunches, aside from ensuring that you have a profitable business that does cash flow, and that you have some lines of credit in place that you can pull from when needed. So that's the answer. Be prepared. That's the answer.
Yeah. Right. And I know somebody might be listening saying, all right, that obviously seems very common sense and obvious, but what percentage of people that you would say who are owning the private practice that you're interacting with them, how many of them actually, when they first come to you, either A, have a cash flow problem, or they just don't even know what their cash flow is looking like?
All of them.
So about 100%.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. The problem that we see is physical, we're talking about physical therapists, but we also work with like MDs and chiropractors and health, allied health professionals. We tend to be very romantic with our business because we love people and we have this self-sacrificing nature about ourselves, which is awesome. But also, we tend to self-sacrifice so much that we go broke, and we accept declining reimbursements. We accept low-paying insurances, and we probably overpay our teams a little bit too much, and they're a little underproductive because we care about them and we love them. We have a hard time holding the line. And so we end up building a business that's financially unstable. And when you start scaling that, you're scaling a lot of problems and you're not scaling a lot of solutions. So the first step in our program is to identify what that model looks like. Like, let's get objectively clear on what needs to be true to build a financial model that is stable, is predictably profitable, and that helps everyone win: the business owner, the business, the patients, and the team. And when you establish that and you build that, then you can scale that up, right? You can scale that up and it's profitable and everybody wins, and you can hit those cash reserves that you need.
So it sounds like you're saying you get a lot of people who are that very classic altruistic individual, but then having those just hard, maybe not hard decisions, but those just straight up business decisions they're struggle with a little bit, and they don't maybe treat it
Totally.
like a business.
Totally. I mean, like one of my core values is to go straight at it. So I'm from the South. I just kind of speak simply about things, but we're led to believe that our patients are the most important thing in the business. And I understand where that comes from. Your patients are the most important thing for a clinician, right? But everything is there to support the business. Everyone serves the business, even the owner. And so it's hard to take off that clinician hat and put on that owner hat that believes that operating with a finance first mindset is how you save and preserve the organization, right? So you have to make decisions that preserve finance first, not from a place of greed or from a place of like trying to take things from people, but from a place of necessity. We have to be real about like the truth is this is not the last government shutdown that we're going to deal with. And you have to be real about that. And we can't waive copays, right? Like we have to
Which is a lot
collect
of
the
people do.
copays
Yeah.
so that we can have an organization that can withstand these types of things. And that requires a finance first mindset with a lot of hard decisions. And it's hard to break through that for some people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think you really nailed it on the head there, which is also understanding just what as the owner, especially, what are your strengths and weaknesses, so to speak? And can you surround yourself with people that'll help buttress that? I mean, even I know for me, when I was just what you described, that very clinical mindset, moving up into the business aspect, and my mentor who was in the company, his background was in finance. He came from Wall Street. So it was a very different way of doing it. But to your point, it's not a matter of, there's a difference between running a business the way it needs to be run versus doing unethical and, greed tactics. But I find that a lot of people who move into that ownership mentality, they kind of don't understand the difference. There's almost, if we're making money, maybe we're doing something unscrupulous versus, now if you're making money and you're doing things the right way, that's actually how you run a business and stay open and can reinvest back into, the employees and back to the business, back to the patients. Where do you think, I think maybe the question I'll ask you is, at least has been in the past, I'm curious to know where you're hearing on your end now, the business training that we get in school, which is often a joke for many people. What are you still seeing now as these, clinicians are transitioning? Has the schooling that they're getting in college and they're getting their doctoral degrees and their MD, degrees and all that, are you seeing any change with these younger providers where they have a little more business sense, or is it still just we get nothing and we're almost teaching people from the ground up?
That's a great question. So I don't know if I have a great answer. I can just kind of speak from my experience. I do a lot of guest lectures at universities, and I lecture on like how do you open a private practice, you know? And what I have found, I've been doing it for about 5 or 6 years, and what I find is that, one of the first questions I asked during the lecture is, how many of you guys want to own your own business one day? And I can say that there are a lot more people with hands raised now than they used to be. And I don't know why that's the case, but I guess I can hypothesize and say that I think it has to do with the profession really recognizing the financial strain that we're experiencing and that trickling down to the professors, and that, recognizing that being a staff PT, it's hard to win financially if you're
Yeah.
just a staff PT. Like, you're going to be broke. Let's just you're going to work really, really hard for a long time, for a lot of years, and you're going to probably be broke, especially in an outpatient setting. So having some type of business acumen, even if you don't want to open up your own business one day, understanding how to be useful inside of business and be at the table when the owner is trying to make business decisions and be a supporter of that alone, just being that person in the room, can help you earn a lot more money and be more of an entrepreneur inside these companies, which I think is a great thing. I think that's a similar story that you had, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, part of it too is Yeah, like you said, it's just really knowing what you're getting into. And you made a good point. If you're working in something, physical therapy, occupational therapy, chiropractor, whatever it is, your salary ceiling is definitely way lower.
For sure.
It's no different than so many other professions, right? Nursing, same thing. You're going to be a staff, a clinician, whatever. And then you're looking at it and saying, I've maxed out my career after being a professional for 5 years. So what does the next
Mm,
30 years look like? Especially when maxing out doesn't mean you're making $500,000. It usually means you're making 125,000, which for some people is a phenomenal, but factor in this debt, and then if based on where we're living, what state, it really varies. So and to your point though, it's really how do you bring as the employee, even if you don't want to open your own practice, which is exactly what I did not want to do. I didn't want my own practice because it's not easy. And at that point in my life, I know I wasn't mentally prepared for it. It's how do I add more value to the company that I'm with? And that's where I feel a lot of people, kind of get tripped up. They just expect that, hey, I'm here working for another year, doing the same thing, so that means I should get another $5,000 or $10,000 raise, which doesn't mean you shouldn't get anything, but they don't do anything different, right? So if you're the same person in year 2 that you now are at year 5, where's the extra value that you've added for the company? And that's what I really feel like that's something hard for a lot of people to wrap their head around. That's what I was telling. Like, what are you doing to add more value? What skills are you learning? It's not just courses and getting better at the job at hand. If you're a physical therapist, getting better at exercise prescription or doing hands-on therapy with patients. It's what are you getting better even on the personal development side? How are you improving your
totally.
empathy? How are you improving your skills to improve patient retention? Things like that actually adds a lot to a company. So that's a great point, is how to basically be the owner within the business when you're not actually the owner. And then that obviously entails you have to be working for somebody who allows you to have that happen, right?
Sure.
Because there are certain owners that just want to kind of gatekeep and hold all the information to themselves. They're maybe afraid you're
Hmm.
going to steal the secrets and then open up a clinic down the road. So it's also understanding, is this the place for me that's going to grow long term? But when you're, working with these individuals and you talk a lot about KPIs and data and metrics, just really, and I love that aspect. And it's really something that I harp on a lot, but how important is it in the outpatient physical therapy, chiropractic world for these owners to have data when it comes to
Yeah.
decision making?
I think it's impossible to win financially without it. I'm not saying that you can't, because I do know there's a few rare birds out there who can still kind of, they have an intuition around the numbers. There are people that are good enough to do that. I'm not one of them. Like, I have to have the data. I have to be analytical. I get a little paralyzed with my decision making when I'm not really sure where the money lines are at. So, and that's the vast majority of us. But it feels like you're in the dark, right? So, like, it feels like you're in the dark. If you feel overwhelmed and anxious and you're not sure when your next dollar is going to come from, that is a clear sign that you just don't know your numbers. You just don't know your numbers, because making money in in my opinion, it's just a math problem in any business. And math doesn't, it's very objective. It's the most objective thing there is, right? Like, it's like, 2 plus 2 will always be 4
Yeah,
forever.
unless you go on social media, then I guess some people debating. You're like, you sure it doesn't
Right.
equal 5? But
Right, right,
yes,
right. But, like, every time, like, we don't go to sleep at night and worry, man, I wonder if 2 plus 2 is not going to be 4 tomorrow. Like, it's just 4, right? It's
yes.
like, so, like, that's what we want to get with your business. Like, we just got to build it objectively. So, it's like, oh, all I got to do is do that. And then I'm good. And I know how much money I'm going to have. It's like, that's all it needs to be. So, I would say the data helps you build confidence and certainty around your decisions. And the decisions that you make is the thing that really drives your business forward. That's a piece of it. Now, there is another component of it, in my opinion, where maybe it's more of a level 2, which is whenever you start having to hold your team accountable to the numbers. Because
Yeah, what do
it's
you mean
one
by that?
thing, it's one thing to have data. It's a different thing to have to do something about it. That's a different animal, right? Like, we can throw your data on the board and we can be like, all right, yeah, I'm broke. Now, what are you gonna do about it?
So it's almost like you have the knowledge, but what actions, right? Knowledge
What are
without
you gonna
action does
do about
nothing.
it? What are you gonna do about it, buddy? And that's gonna require some really hard conversations with people and some renegotiations around what the expectations are at that front desk and at the provider level, and what you're willing to tolerate, right? And I think that's really where I come in, is helping them take that information and actually be the person who can drive that execution in the organization. That's when I like to have fun.
Yeah. So, when you're looking at it, you're saying, all right, you were collecting information, but then the other aspect too, even be curious to know what you think about this. The other part before you even taking action is just knowing, all right, what is the data actually telling me, right? Or if
Yeah, what does it mean?
yeah, what does it mean? What are the patterns? If you have a high cancellation rate, which if how many clinics even track that, right? So I don't know how many patients don't come in, then you don't know what they're not coming in for. It's hard to fix the problem versus what a lot of people just do is, all right, I see a lot of red on our calendar, and then guys, we just need to be better, right? It's almost not a motivational talk, but it's just kind of like a little pep talk. Like we got to do better with talking to people, and then they're just, what do we actually do? Like, if we knew what to do, we'd be doing it. So I think there's this aspect too of, like you said, having some accountability, even as a person who's in charge, right? How do I do a better job training these individuals? Or to your point, how do I do a better job of sitting down and going over numbers? And I think that's probably a good, next question is how many owners don't even want to talk numbers with their employees?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that's an issue that you see, but that's just something where I see a lot of people are like, I don't want to talk business. I don't want to talk numbers. I don't want them to think we're not about helping patients. And then the numbers stink and you're kind of scratching your head as to wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
What are you seeing on your end?
Well, I mean, it just goes back to that PT, the physical therapist heart, or therapist heart, like I think it's the burden of the CEO. Like, good luck running a business if you're not willing to have a conversation around your business. Like, it's like I can't help you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that it's going to be comfortable. I'm saying it's necessary. Like, if we go on a coaching call and you're like, I don't want to talk to my team about metrics, then we're probably just wasting our time. Really, like you have to do that. Yeah. You have to do it, and you have to find the courage to become that person who can lead their team through data, and also treat the patients better than anybody else too. Like there's both. So I want to hit on one quick thing. Because you mentioned, just kind of having a rah-rah speech with your team. I think that is important. I think that motivation and accountability is a piece of that, but there's also two other things that we look at in our company. Number one is, do you have a system in place, right? Do you have a system that is documented and that is built and designed to prioritize profitability and a great patient and team experience? Like, you have to have that documented. That's number one. Number two is, does your team know the system? Have they been trained appropriately? So it's one thing to have the system, but do you have it? Maybe you have a training problem, right? So if I say, hey, Dan, cancellation rate was low, no big deal. Do you have an idea of why that is? And you say, I don't know. It's probably because you haven't been trained appropriately, right? So we're going to train you. We have to have a system of training our team. And then the last piece is, you're just not motivated, right? Like, we have to find ways to inspire and enroll our team into being motivated. And you can do that through internal ways via being a great visionary and a great inspirer, or you can also do it externally through compensation plans or some type of external variable that motivates people. But if you get those three things right, then you can really serve your people well, right? The people component in your organization will be served. And I think as a CEO, like, you have to keep your pulse on your people, right? You got to keep a strong culture, motivate them well, make sure they're trained, and also be a really great visionary. You have to have all those skills.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know, as I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking what some people might say about employee motivation, right? That you have to motivate themselves. And I think that's a huge part of it. But even if you have the hungriest, most dedicated, most motivated person, if there's that alignment that you talked about between the vision and ownership and not having it with employees, you could take the best employee and turn them into just somebody who's average, right? They just get so beat down with, I'm busting my hump, but I'm not really sure what direction I'm moving in even. Like, what's my own pathway in this company?
Totally.
I don't even know the company's pathway, but I don't even know my own. So you can take somebody who's amazing and just kind of grind them down a little bit. So there is that aspect for sure of just treat people the right way. But then, hey guys, what are we actually working towards? And then are the actions that we're putting out every day, do they match up with what we're telling you, right? Versus, hey, we're really patient centric, and then it's, hey, let's just maximize them and milk their insurance for everything they're worth. Like, all right, well,
Sure.
that doesn't line up. When we're looking at your, I'm really kind of curious to know about you have a coaching program, and you just did an event, if I'm not mistaken, early this month. So I'd really, outside of just your coach, I say just, but outside of performing high level coaching with these PTs, and you're doing some events. I know, if I'm not mistaken, last year was your first one.
Yeah. So last year we had our first in person.
Yeah. And then, so just tell us a little bit about that. And then what was the success like for this one? And just what, coming out of that event, how is it maybe, I don't say jacked up, but like, how's it really amplified your own vision for your future and even just for the future of the people that you're working with?
Yeah. It's been a journey, man. The whole coaching business has been a journey. It's been a new thing. I didn't know anything about like social media and like all this stuff. So like I'm learning. Um, I would say that one thing that I learned. So last year we did our first event. We had about 45 people show up. 45
yeah.
practice owners. Pretty cool, right? This year we had 150.
Damn.
So pretty cool, right?
No doubt about it.
People were like, "Why? Well, how did you do that?" And I'm gonna tell you right now. So, you guys you ever watch Alex Hormozy stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, Alex Hormozy, he's like the marketing godfather right now, like him and a bunch of guys. But he's got this concept called more, better, new. And more, better, new means whenever you're trying to promote anything, whether it's your practice or what a new program or a new team member. We always beat ourselves up with like, how am I going to market this? How am I going to help people realize that we exist? And Alex says, start with more. So start doing more activity. And through the volume of activity, you will get better. And then once you're really good, once you're doing a lot of volume and you're really good, then you can try something new. And so I'm saying that to say that the only difference between last year and this year is we sent like 10,000 text messages. We made 10,000 phone calls. We did 10,000 emails. We just did so much volume of outreach that it became impractical that somebody wouldn't know that we were having an event. And it worked. Like it was really, really amazing to see like just putting in the volume of work actually got people to the event, So that's the one thing that I learned about the event. The event was incredible. We had practice owners. We had guys that had like 40 plus clinics speaking, and it's just incredible to see the companies that they've built. And for me, what I took out of it was it all comes back to being really clear about your data. A lot of those guys were saying the only reason I'm able to do this is because I'm extremely clear about my finances. And when you can get extremely clear about your finances, you can build an objective model on paper and make data-driven decisions from a financial first mindset. You can grow your business. You can create something that's really cool, not just financially, but from your people as well. So that's where I'm at.
I love it, man. So when you're looking at where you're currently at now, and you've been in business for how long?
So I started my practice in 2019.
So if you go back to 2019, if I'm going to eliminate hard work, what's one thing that you would have done differently then that you've learned over the years? Say like, man, if I did that then, maybe I could have accelerated my process by 3 or 4 years.
I would say step out of the treatment a lot quicker. Working on the business instead of in the business is just it. We've all heard that, right? Don't work in the business, work on the business, right? But there's like levels to that, right? The first level is like, let me figure out how to get out of patient care so that I can put together a plan for the week. You know what I mean? And then you step out of treatment and you will start working on the business, and the business starts to grow, and then it gets really busy again. And then you got to step out a little more, and then the business starts to grow. And then you step out a little more, and the business starts to grow. So it took me a long time to realize, and I still have to remind myself that time and space on your calendar is the prerequisite to growth. right?
What do you mean by
You
that?
cannot
Time and space on your calendar.
you cannot grow without time and space, right? So like you're the CEO, you're the driver of this. You're the creative genius, you're the stallion, right? And if you are buried in chaos and busy work, 40 hours, 50 hours a week, you're never going to be able to tap into that creative genius that you are. You're never going to be able to do it. It's not until you're able to separate yourself from the chaos, take care of yourself a little bit, and start thinking more strategically about working on the business that allows you to like make an impact. So a good, really cool podcast is the Mind Your Business podcast by James Wedmore. He says, if you value your money more than your time, you'll have neither. But if you value your time more than your money, you'll have an abundance of both. So the lesson is make time your most important asset. Like forget the money.
Yeah.
It's not about money. It's about freedom. First you have freedom and you prioritize your time, then the money comes. And every time I double down on my time, I make more money. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest lesson.
Yeah, that's so it's not a backwards way, but it's almost like we're taught to do opposite.
It's scary.
Right. Yeah, it's like so you're telling me to free up my schedule so I can make more money, isn't it the other way around? So it's definitely a huge mindset shift, and there is this aspect. And I know that's something honestly I've struggled with. It's just
Totally.
I have my own coach, and I'm just asking like, bro, like what do I work on when I'm 3 in the afternoon and I'm done? He's like, well, what skills could you get better? It's like, yeah, good point. He's like, what are you doing? Thinking time.
Create something.
Yeah, when are you strategizing? So I think that's also part of the struggle for just a lot of people. All right, if I free up my schedule by 5 to 10 hours, what do I do then? Right. So it's almost that comfort zone that you mentioned at the beginning of the episode of just, it's comforting just to kind of do the same stuff that I've known for however many years I've been in it. When you made that move though, from treating patients to getting, kind of getting away from that, did you 100%, I'm done treating, or is it, all right, I'm going to maybe treat 1 or 2 days a week and then do the work on the business the other days? I'm curious to know your approach. That's definitely, I know, a struggle for some people. Like,
100%.
which approach do I take?
So I'm always a little more aggressive than most therapists. I'm just naturally built that way. So I think I started with just like a half a day a week, like Tuesday from 8 to 12, I'm not treating patients. And I started there, and then it went to 2 half days a week, and then it went to 2 full days, and then it went to 3 days. And then eventually I got to a place where I had so many things to do outside of the clinic. This is when I knew it was time. I was like working on a patient's back with my hands, with one hand, and then I was like looking over my shoulder, like answering some emails on my phone with the other hand. And I was like, that's when it's time it's time to get out, dude. Like the patient's not being served. Like you need to let go. And so what you'll start to experience is that your purpose starts to shift, right? Like treating patients is amazing and making that impact is amazing. But as your vision grows, so does your purpose. And you recognize that there's a bigger impact that you can make when you build something really cool, where not just your patients get better, but everyone's patients get better. The whole community gets better. The therapists get better. And so then that's kind of how I did it, kind of gradually over probably a 2-year span.
That's smart, man. So, but what you're saying is don't treat patients with one hand while checking out the cell phone.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
Bad idea.
Hey, that's not the company standards. Nah, but I totally get you, man. I mean, I did, and honestly, I like that approach you did. I did the opposite. I just had I literally, I think just one day I was like, all right, I'm done kind of forever. It was just kind of same thing that you mentioned. No, it was just, you're trying to treat your own patients. And if you're really vested in patient care, you're trying to treat your own and then help everybody else. And you're just finding that I can't help everybody else because there's only so much of me to go around, right? So I think what you just described there was really phenomenal, which is, am I helping my own patients, or take however many providers you have in your office, am I helping all of their patients too? And then what's the trickle-down effect towards, like you said, the community? So I really like that approach, and I think that's the biggest thing that clinicians who are moving into even if it's just moving into management, which is where I was at that point, and even as a director, it's how impactful can I be doing the same thing versus making a small adjustment, even if it's not seeing patients one day a
Mhm.
week or half a day? What could I do to really help the business and help everybody else?
Totally. One other thing that I would have done differently is I would have started a business before I started my clinic, like something really small and low risk, like get a couple VAs or a part-time, a part-time person and do something small and like just get used to working a business, like getting paid, getting customers, selling your service, building a few systems, something very small, and just having a little bit of business sense before you jump in and like rent a 2,000 square foot facility and you got like it goes such a long way. Like you don't realize how much you don't know until you get buried in the business, and it's a steep learning curve when you have no business experience or knowledge and you're
Yeah.
trying to work your way out of that hole.
You ever do any type of, and I'd be curious for you, particularly a personality index or maybe a disc?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've done the Enneagram. I'm a 3. I'm an achiever. I've done the working genius, and I'm a galvanizer, which means I'm really good at motivating the people and
Yeah.
getting them bought into the vision. And I'm a wanderer. So I'm really good at dreaming and having a vision, staying at the top of the organization.
Yeah. So, and I asked you that because, as you're describing your mode, I jumped in and then I figured it out as I went along. And, I think part of that too is when you're moving into whatever, even if you're just moving into an industry, I'm moving into healthcare or I want to open my own practice, is aspect too of, all right, what am I talked about strengths and weaknesses? What kind of personality do I have? Right. And then if I
Totally.
have that personality where, hey, I'm, on a disc, which I've done, I'm not a high dominant person. We jump in, we run through a wall, and then it's, all right, let me figure out, I made some mistakes. Let me figure it out on the fly. Who do
Mhm.
I need to surround myself with to help me out? Right. So if it's coaches, mentors, or
Totally.
what's my next hire? A lot of times
Totally.
we look at, do I just want to hire the same people, which is what a lot of us do. Right? I want to hire somebody just like me, as opposed to I need to hire somebody who's going to fill in my own gaps and really help us
Yes.
flourish. Right? I think that's very, very underutilized. I'd be curious to know how you've gone about hiring people that maybe complement you, so you can have that moment of, I'm going to forge through and do this, or how I'm going to take the time to really just strategize and think and plan. And I have somebody else that I know can run the business successfully, especially as we're scaling.
Yeah, so the first personality assessment I ever did was the galvanizer assessment. It came out of the book Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, and it describes the difference between a visionary and an integrator. That book right there is for me is was like there are people that are actually different, right? Like that was my wake up call. Right? And like understood why my team looked at me like I was crazy every time I tried to tell them something, right?
Like, don't you guys
And
get me? It's like, no, we
yeah,
don't.
you can't understand what I'm saying. They're like, we don't understand
Yeah.
anything you're saying. But now I get it, right? And from there, I think I said 5 working geniuses, but I think it's the six or seven working geniuses. That one's really cool. We've done that one with our leadership team, and the reason why that personality assessment's really cool is because it goes from there's these series of steps that take place from creating the idea to final product. And it's important to have a team that is well balanced, that is good, that is energized and naturally gifted at each step of that process. And you can create your workflows through your team when you understand what they're naturally good at. For instance, some people are good at the idea generation. Some people are really good at discerning ideas, meaning is that a good idea or a bad idea? Some people are good at building the process. Some people are good at integrating the process and leading the team, right? So I'm not good at all those things. I'm only good at certain pieces. And so I want to surround myself with people who are better at the other steps, and we can filter our ideas through them.
Love it. Now, while you're in the process of, you just bought a credentialing company, you have, 3 other companies that you're running as well, multiple teams you're managing. You're not just some single guy, hanging out at home that can work 80, 90 hours and know that you can sleep till 12 o'clock on Saturdays, like I used to way back in the
Yeah.
day before I was married. Um, what's it like doing all this and putting in the time and the effort and having the vision while juggling a family? And just what are some of the pain points? Because those are definitely things that don't get talked a lot about
Sure.
on anywhere really, social media, whatever. Of just it's you do hear a lot of just open a business. You mentioned when you go to speak at schools, and it's how many of you want to open practice, and you're noticing more hands raised. And I'm curious, maybe if people are just seeing more stuff on social media about owning your own business and owning equity, so to speak. But then they jump in and they don't understand the pressures that come with that and how that affects their personal life and their relationship. So, if you could speak to a little bit of that, or maybe some of the struggles and some of the things you had to learn along the way, that you're at a point now where it's not easy, but
No,
you live
right.
in, it's definitely hard. It's not like, oh, I'm just, hanging out on a beach drinking margaritas while everybody's busting their ass. But how to really manage that? Because that is definitely a concern for a lot of people. If I get into the business, what does that do to my life? Or they don't think about it at all, and then their life and their relationship suffer.
Well, your relationships are gonna suffer a little. And it's not about it's there's no way you're gonna start a business and it not impact your family. It's not gonna happen. Okay? So it's not about being perfect. It's about keeping it as a priority, keeping it the priority, right? Because there are times when I go off the rails and I'm too buried in the business, and my wife is like, Adam, buddy, we've been here. And I'm like, oh yeah, give me a week. I'm coming back, and I have to work myself back out. Uh, and I think that's the life of an entrepreneur. And I think it's important for your spouse to understand that and to be a supporter of you. And it's about her, in my case, it's her holding me accountable to that. Um, so I think it's important to have a really strong marriage. Also, for my kids, it's not it's not always about the quantity of time that we spend. Now we do have times where we go on vacation and but I like to focus on the quality of time, right? So like if I only get an hour with my kids in the evening, like it's gonna be phone off. I've got like I'm on the floor, I'm wrestling with them, I'm fully present with them. And that 1 hour of deep connection with my kids is so much more important to me than just like sitting around and watching them, watch YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So you got to focus on quality time instead of quantity of time. Um, Regarding the bigger picture, that is why it is so critical to make your time the most valuable asset. If you aren't you, I'm always trying to figure out how to back myself out of the business. Always. That's really like one of my main jobs. Back myself out of the business and drive business into the organization. That's really it. And if you don't keep that lens and you start getting sucked back into the business and you're not a good delegator, you're gonna get swallowed up, right? So delegation and keeping time your priority is how you have time for your family. So those are the three things that I recommend.
Yeah, I love it. What do you where do you see the future for, being that you work with predominantly a lot of physical therapists? What do you see as the near term future for, physical therapists? And if somebody's, listening to this, not just as a PT, but somebody who is maybe not even, maybe they're in healthcare, maybe they're not, but just what do you see for the future of that profession? And then what would you actually like to see from it?
Well, I've been talking to people a lot smarter than me, and a lot of people tell me that there are going to be some improvements in our profession. I think it looks like there are more students entering into PT school than now compared to the last couple years. So I do see it growing. I do see some reimbursement improvements. I do think it's going to take 5 to 10 years to start seeing that. Um, but I wouldn't wait around on that. I think that where I stand today, now if you ask me this 6 months from now, it might change, but I feel like the practices that have owners who are obsessed with operational efficiency and learning the business of private practice and creating a financial first culture and mindset will win. And I also think it's going to be really critical for you to be prepared to pivot, because the traditional treat patients, take 100% of the insurances and treat as many patients as you can, that's not going to work. Like we need to start thinking about other revenue streams for your business, learning how to market, learning how to sell, and renegotiating your contracts and not accepting all the insurances. And then also there's a lot of cash pay options that you can bring into your practice. So you're gonna have to get good at business. You're gonna have to learn how to market directly to the consumer, charge cash, charge what you're worth, hold your team accountable, and have really great operations. And if you do that, you can win. Health and wellness is still here. It's one of the biggest industries in America. So people are doing it, but you gotta stop treating so many patients. You know what I mean? Like you gotta learn these skills. You gotta build a personal brand. You gotta start being a thought leader in the space and not just a clinician. And if you do that, I think you can build something really cool for yourself.
And I love it, all that you just said. For the person who's maybe a lay person, and there may be, physical therapy, obviously, outside of the business component, has just a strong aspect of so many different types of disciplines. Obviously, one of them is dealing with pain, right? And the United States obviously has a major issue with pain management, so to speak. What the hell was I seeing yesterday? That I think the U.S. has like 5% of the population in the world and uses 90% of the pain meds. So we have these models of healthcare, you said health and wellness, where there's some options that are non-pharmaceuticals and non-surgical. What would be, as somebody who's a physical therapist and you're advocating just for physical therapy itself, or, OT, something conservative along those lines, what is the message you want to maybe tell the lay person? Somebody's out there saying, all right, this is all about business. Great. I'm actually dealing with some pain or some issues and I'm not sure what should I do. What would you like to tell that person?
So this is the person who is not really sure how to pivot and survive in the market. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, just even not even like as an owner, but this is just for those individuals who are maybe thinking about doing some type of therapy. It's like this has been all
Yeah,
business, but
yeah,
just as we kind of put our clinician hat on for a hot second here.
for sure, for sure. Man, I'll tell you that I'm not so sure you'll find a profession that cares more about you than physical therapists. Um, it's so incredible to see how our our people, and when I say people, I mean PTs, how like there's this rush of just energy when we start talking about how to serve other people. You know what I mean? Like I love that. And that's most of the people, right? That's not all of us, but I feel like most PTs are obsessed with helping patients feel like they're the most important person in the room. And that's why people like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and like it's hard not to find value in that. Whether that's you getting out of pain, whether that's just somebody to freaking talk to for the day. You know what I mean? And you get to exercise and get stronger. So I love the profession. I love the who we are. I think we have some weaknesses. We're not perfect, but like regarding a safe place to be and to truly get served, I think that PT is the best place.
Love it. Adam, this is phenomenal, dude. Before we check out, how can somebody, reach you if they want to just start working on their systems a little bit, or,
For sure,
how to
man.
create some more efficiencies? How did I get a hold of you?
So email me, Adam at ppoclub.com. That's two P's, paul.com. Um, man, listen, I'm a I'm an entrepreneur. I love business. I'm a leadership guy, and I would love to talk shop anytime. We help practice owners. We're not built for everyone. If it's a good fit, we'll work together. If it's not, you can. There's plenty of great coaches out
Yeah,
there.
work with me.
Yeah, yeah, you could for sure. Like uh, I'm here to help. And if you ever want to connect and learn a little bit more about what we do, happy to chat.
Love it. Dude, this is phenomenal, high level stuff. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to hang with us. Catch you next time. Everybody, great talk.